Yo, what up? It's your boy, Mr. E, and today we're going to be learning about measurement conversions. So, there's many times in life that we have where we find something that it's in ounces or inches or some sort of other measurement, but we want to convert it to another type of measurement to help us more easily do something. That's where measurement conversions comes in. Now, if you remember, when we were learning about volume, area, and perimeter, we had something called a star chart. And we're actually going to use this as well for measurement conversions. So this will still be your best friend. So as you can see on our star chart, we have it divided into three categories: length, volume and capacity, and weight and mass. So it easily organizes what you're going to need to use it for. Also, another way it's easily organized is that on the left side, we have the customary system. And the customary system is just something that we use in the US. It's also used in a couple other places, but this is what you should be typically familiar with. You'll see inches, feet, gallons, tons, pounds. We use this in everyday life. And on the right side is the metric system. And the metric system is something that the rest of the world typically uses. So things like meters, liters, and grams. And in my opinion, the metric system's a little bit easier because it's based off of a base 10. But it's not as familiar because we don't use these as often in our country. But we're going to be using this star chart very, very often because we don't expect you as teachers to memorize this stuff. I'll be honest with you, I don't have this stuff remembered. I know that, 12 inches are in a foot and that they're 3 feet in a yard. But when it comes to like the tons and the gallons and all that kind of stuff, that blows my mind. So I use this chart frequently. And if you know anything about Mr. E, I always tell you, use your resources. So let's go ahead and look at a problem. So we've got 8 yards, and we're trying to find out how many feet are in those 8 yards. Now, I know a lot of my smart kids already are like, I already know. But bear with me, and let's go through the steps. So step 1 is we're going to set up our one chart. And yes, I have another fun, silly chart to help you remember how to do something in math. The one chart stands for word, original, and new. And as we fill in this one chart, it's going to make a lot more sense. Step 2, carefully fill in each column. Use your star chart. So for the word part, we're going to take a look at the words that we're using. We're using yards and feet. So I put the yards on the top and the feet on the bottom. It really doesn't matter which one you put on top or bottom. That's just the way I wanted to set it up for this one. So original means the original conversion, what we would typically use the conversion, so a 1 to whatever ratio. So there are 3 feet in 1 yard, so 1 at the top, 3 at the bottom. And then new is going to be the new conversion that you're looking for. We want to know how many are in 8 yards, but we don't quite know yet how many feet are in there. So I put an X there. You could put a question mark, you could put Y, you could put a potato. It doesn't matter. We're just using it as a variable to show us that we know that's an unknown quantity. Step 3, set up an equivalent fraction or proportion. We're more familiar with the word equivalent fraction, but as you go into middle school, you'll learn about things called proportions and ratios, and you're going to be using those a lot, okay? For us, we're going to try to think of it as an equivalent fraction, though, for the most part. So figure out the rule that you can use going left to right or cross multiply. So we can see as we're setting up this equivalent fraction that when we go from 1 to 8, we're multiplying by 8. So if we do that to the top one, we're going to have to do that to the bottom one as well. This one was a little bit easier to see, but when we start using decimals or bigger numbers, it might not be so obvious what the rule is going from left to right. So that's why I suggest to cross multiply. And we'll show a couple examples of that later. So step 5, solve for the unknown. So 3 times 8 is going to give us 24. So there are 24 feet in 8 yards. This was a pretty simple conversion, and we're going to do a couple of problems where they're maybe not as simple, but that's all there is to it. The one chart is something that's super, super helpful, helps you set up an equivalent fraction or a proportion, and then you can easily solve. Let's go ahead and do a couple practice problems together. All right, I got my handy dandy star chart ready right next to me. I'm going to be able to do these problems with ease. So we've got 4,000 milliliters equals how many liters? So this is the metric system, and we might not be as familiar with the metric system, but we're going to be able to rock and roll on this, okay? So we're going to set up our one chart, okay, W, O, N. And remember, W stands for word, O stands for original, N stands for new. So we're going from milliliters to liters, okay? O stands for original, so I got to look at the original conversion. And I look at my star chart, and I see that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Now I'm going to set up my new. I know for my new one, I want to see how much are in 4,000, but I don't quite know how many liters that is yet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an equivalent fraction, and I'm actually going to do it within my one chart. If you want to write it off to the side, that's totally fine too, okay? So my equivalent fraction looks like something like this. So now I've got to make a rule. What did I do to get from 1,000 to 4,000? Well, it looks like I multiplied by 4. So if I multiplied by 4 on the top, I'm going to have to do that on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply by 4. 1 times 4 is pretty easy. It's going to give us 4. So we know that there are 4 liters in 4,000 milliliters. Now, the cool thing about the metric system is you actually just have to use a base 10 model. So all we had to do is move the decimal over 3 times to get our answer. So the metric system is actually a lot easier to work with. Why we don't use it in America, who knows? There's a lot of opinions on that. But pretty simple to go from one thing to another in the metric system. Let's move on to the next problem. So the next problem, we have 32,000 ounces into T, and T is tons, okay? Now, something tricky about this problem is if I look at my star chart, I don't have an exact measurement from ounces to tons. So something that's super easy I could do is I could just go ask Alexa how to do that. Alexa, how many ounces are in a ton?
Mr. E, stop being so lazy and actually teach these kids how to do this. Using me is cheating, and you must be a big dummy if you need ask me how to do this.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Fine, Alexa, I will go ahead and do the problem all on my own. So we're going to have to set up 2 one charts for this one, okay? But we're going to be able to do this with ease, okay? So W, O, N. All right, we're going from ounces, but instead of going straight to tons, I'm going to go to the measurement that I have on my star chart, which is pounds. So we're going to go from ounces to pounds, okay? So first thing I need to do is use my original, all right? I'm going to go 16 ounces are in 1 pound. My new is 32,000, that's a big jump, into X, okay? Set up my equivalent fraction, and it looks like I'm multiplying. If we multiply 16 by 2, that'll get us 32, but this is 32,000, so instead of multiplying by 2, I'm going to multiply by 2,000. So if I multiply the top one by 2,000, I'm going to have to multiply the bottom one by 2,000. So if I do that, that means X is going to equal 2,000. So it looks like there is 2,000 pounds in 32,000 ounces. Now I need to set up one more one chart. So I've got W, O, and N. Now we're going to go from pounds to tons. We look at our original. So our original was 1 pound, or how many pounds? There's 2,000 pounds. And 1 ton, okay? And our new is going to be 2,000, which I'm starting to recognize something here. And X, yeah, these are pretty much the same things, folks. So we're just going to multiply by 1, multiply by 1. So X equals 1. So it looks like 32,000 ounces is going to be 1 ton. Okay? So in this one, we just had to set up 2 1 charts, which isn't too hard to do. But not all the time is it just going to be something you have to look up on your star chart. In the real world, I could ask Alexa how to do that, or I could look it up on my phone, and we could have a more easy conversion. But since we can't use those types of things on our tests and the star test, we are going to have to refer to the star chart, and we have to do this, okay? Let's go ahead and do the last problem. The last problem, we have 25 inches equals blank feet. So let's set up our 1 chart once more. So W-O-N, the words are inches. I always forget I gotta bubble that in kind of to feet. So if I look at my star chart, it looks like there are 12 inches in 1 foot. My new number is 25, and then X. Set up our equivalent fraction. Now, something I notice here is 12 doesn't fit equally into 25. So I really can't say 12 times anything is going to give me 25. This is where setting up a proportion and cross multiplying will be helpful. So what I always tell my students to do is we're going to circle around the 2 numbers and then put a smaller circle around the number that's all by itself. So we're not really going to use this X for right now. So these 2 numbers we're going to multiply by each other, and then this number we're going to divide by each other. So what we can do is we can say 25 divided by 12. How many times can 12 fit into 25? Well, that can fit in 2 times. And we have a remainder here, okay? So one thing we could do is we could keep dividing and we could get a decimal answer. Or another thing we could do is we could use that remainder to help us get our answer. It's going to be 2 feet and 1 inch. If we wanted to answer as a decimal, that would have been fine too. It really doesn't matter which way we would have done it. But I just wanted to show you that not all the time when we do measurement conversions, it's going to completely equal transfer over. And this is a way that you can do it. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you get a little bit more practice with measurement conversions so you can get a hundo on your next test. Keep learning, Els Bros.